One of the other major health stories of the day is this brand new research that's just been published this morning showing a link between professional rugby players and brain damage. And I know that this is actually something that's really close to your heart, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, as you know, a lot of my friends have suffered and have had head injuries from playing the game over the years. And I'm pleased to say that rugby officials have recently said they'll be doing more to try and protect players. But a brand new advanced scan that can detect damage early could be life-changing. So I went to find out more.
To Scarborough. Russell outside, Scarborough goes on his own.
Earlier this year, I met up with former professional rugby player and my friend... Hey! How's it going? Dan Scarborough. At the time, Dan was reeling from the recent diagnosis of traumatic brain injury and early onset dementia. Tell me what it was like when you got those test results back.
The initial thought was, I'm injured again, here we go. You know, how do we deal with it? And then suddenly you start to realise, well, actually, you know, there might not be the best way back.
Dan believes this is all linked to the knocks he took to his head during his 15 years as a professional rugby player. We get hit on the head, carry on.
Yeah, a bit of a badge of honour, wasn't it? I'm tough enough to get up and carry on.
And the emotion of it all got to him on the day.
I can't do this.
I thought I'd go before you.
I mean, you know, I don't often get like this. I don't think I show my emotions particularly, and you know, it's not something that's, again, anyway.
With Dan being such a good friend, this subject is obviously very close to my heart. So when Dr. Zand told me about this new study linking elite rugby to brain injury that was about to be published, I knew I wanted to find out exactly what it said. Zand, can you tell me a bit more about this study then?
Okay, so it's a study conducted by scientists and neurologists at Imperial and University College London. And what they found using advanced MRI, so brain scanning techniques, is that there are structural brain changes in 23% of the players in the study. So that's almost a quarter of the 44 people in the study.
Did we not know about these problems before? Are they a new thing?
I think what's changed is that as rugby became professional, the hits got bigger. Now, the speed is what's important here. So if you double the speed, you quadruple the energy in the hit, and that's what's putting people's brains in danger.
I wanted to know more. So I'm off to Imperial College London to meet Professor David Sharp, one of the co-authors of the study. Nice to see you. Thanks for having us. It was in this facility where the 44 top players involved in the research underwent MRI scans over a 2-year period. And those scans were in greater detail than ever before.
The problem is the standard imaging approaches would often miss the effects of head injury. So what we've done is we've used 2 new types of imaging. One is looking at particularly at blood vessels within the brain, and a second one which is a way of looking at the connections, the wiring of the brain.
Can you kind of show me what exactly you're looking for?
Now, if you have a bad injury, that can produce quite obvious bleeding on the brain. And what we can see here is a scan that lets us look at the blood vessels within the brain in a lot of detail. And this is one of the players who had quite a nasty impact. And you see these little black bits that stand out.
Yeah.
They're actually what's called microbleeds that are telling us that there's been a significant injury to those blood vessels. The interesting thing here is that their standard brain scans were completely normal.
So if you did this 20 years ago?
Yeah, or 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Right, wow.
You know, we wouldn't have picked anything up.
What are the implications of this study for players and for research?
So we're developing the collaboration with the RFU and also with Premiership Rugby, and we're launching what we call the Advanced Brain Injury Clinic, which will be using some of these new methods to really provide a very comprehensive assessment of players' health.
But this work might not have happened at all were it not for one man who brought this new imaging technology to the world of rugby.
I've been passionate about rugby all my life. Around about 2013, I began to be concerned that the game I loved was causing too many head injuries and concussion incidents.
Since then, the foundation James set up has invested over £2 million into researching the issue.
What I realised, of course, is that rugby and indeed football know all about sports medicine, but they didn't know about neuroscience. So my role really was to connect mainstream contact sport in this country with neuroscience research.
What are your interpretations of the findings then?
There's no question that the findings are worrying. and they raise significant questions about the brain health of elite rugby players in the modern era.
But the positive behind this study is that it is going to have a massive impact on rugby in the future, as well as other sports too.
That's absolutely right. Now, if that happens, this study will be one of the very few that leads to immediate improvement in clinical practice.
A legacy like that would mean the world to James. Why did you set up the Drake Foundation in the first place?
I did it because my father, Horace Drake, was coming to the end of his life. He'd been one of the most altruistic people you could ever imagine. He loved rugby, and I wanted to set up something in his name.
The implications of this study will be huge for the game, and I'm just thinking about Danny and wondering how different things might have been for him if this research was available just, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
The results are quite staggering, really, aren't they? It's the equivalent of what, quarter of your team could be affected or show signs of brain trauma.
It really kind of sparks, I suppose, more conversation, which can only be a positive thing. The idea of, having, MOTs for lads that are playing in the 20s, it would be great.
Would things have been a bit different for you if this research or this technology would have been around, I don't know, like 5 or 10 years ago?
It's clearly pretty hard hitting. There are numerous studies going on all over the place at the minute. This is very interesting because it's current players. A lot of the studies that have gone on have been with former players, go back to your original point, which I can't remember what it was, strangely.
The positive about this study is that it should or will help younger players, the next generations of players, to understand brain injuries.
I think it's key is that everybody understands, and if there is a problem, let's see what we can do to fix it. There are a number of things that can bring into place right now. The return to play for a professional player is 6 days. Now, is that right? It doesn't sit right with me, let alone the science behind it.
One touch, do we carry on? Yeah. We're going to carry on forward.
In the meantime, Dan is committed to creating the safest sporting environment for young players in the game. I have nothing but admiration and respect for the fact that he's determined to try and make sure that rugby is as safe as possible for future generations. And there is progress with this new study because we now understand the scale of the problem at hand, daunting though that may be.